Ahoy mateys! Welcome to my next episode of Sailing with the Dock Rat. This one it's got to be the hardest episode for someone doing this kind of thing to produce. In this, we will experience the ultimate nightmare. A sunken boat. The Melissa Leah is no more. And that's hard to say at the moment. Yeah, it boils over, and it's this really the loss of a loved one. I remember feeling like that when my grandpa died and when I lost my dog Vinny Fingers off my boat in Cape Mendocino when I first started voyaging. It's just super tough. But just at the moment, when I really look at it in any day's events, it's part of what happens when you're out there traveling the world on a sailboat. Boats sink. That's what happens. Fortunately, it's rare occurrence. And most people, I would say, probably go their whole life with a boat without experiencing it. And I don't know in history how many people have lost their lives experiencing it. For me, it was definitely experiencing the loss of a loved one. She was a great boat, man. I rebuilt her. It took 3 years to rebuild her, and I sailed her as far south as the tip of Cabo, as far north as Ketchikan, Alaska. And last year I sailed her to Hawaii, 34 days. So yes, it is. It's super hard to lose a boat. But at the same time, the value in memories is beyond any material value that I lost. And it was everything that I own. Anything that's left over, and we did salvage a lot of parts off the boat, but by what I'm doing, sailing around in oceans, and now I'm starting to bring other people along. The Melissa Leah was too small. I was already strategizing how I was going to get into a bigger boat. The big island of Hawaii on the east side, which is the side of Hilo, that bay is the only safe anchorage on the east side of Hawaii. And the harbor there is, right now it has a 3.5 foot draft. It's been shoaled over and they're not dredging it, so everything in there is stuck. The place where there are some mooring balls is not getting any more mooring balls, and there's an anchorage over there. So what happened? I got here in July. There's a commercial harbor here that turned me away right off the bat. They actually, 4 pickup trucks come driving out on this wing closing off the harbor, and right at the entrance to the harbor, and jumped out there and says, "You are not." I was inside too. I had gone in and they're like, "You turn that boat around right now." Okay, man. Went out and they said, you have to anchor over there, and there's another harbor over there for you. And but there is a bay called Reed's Bay. I anchored in there, went down to the DNLR, Department of Land and Natural Resources, which is the harbor master. There was nothing for that, but these guys control the permits for anchoring there. And they give you 4 months. And that was expiring. Within 2 months of that happening, I got a hold of the harbor over on the Kona side. I think when I called him a month ago, I said, "Call me in 2 weeks." Called him in 2 weeks. Says, "Yeah, we got something for you." I was like, "Okay." At that point, it had been the sailing club in Hilo, which I'm a member of, had a boat on a mooring ball in Reed's Bay. They needed to do some work on it, and they approached me about renting the mooring ball while it was out of the water. And I was all in for that. And then it didn't happen. And it came right down to the end of the 4 months, and I was like ready to leave the next day to come around the island to the Kona side. The club called me and said, hey, let's do it. And 2 days later, blow came through and a bunch of boats got messed up. So my boat did this.
So here's where the Melissa Leah wound up when the mooring ball broke. They put her on this mooring ball yesterday. Jim tied her on really good, and then this crazy wind came through and just the mooring ball broke. Here she is grounded. I don't know where this is going to go or how we're going to fix this. We got some people offering to help us, and we'll keep you apprised. There she is. Holy shit. They got her off, thank God. Whew.
When we got it off the rocks, we brought it around and got it into the harbor at high tide. I was able to keep it in there for maybe 4 or 5 days, just to make sure it wasn't leaking, make sure everything was okay. There was nothing at all. I went back out, and in the process of going through this, the old harbor master has one of the boats out there, and his moorings got all messed up. So we went out helping him getting his moorings straight. And in that conversation, he said, hey, when you come back out, that's where you should anchor right there and lay your chain out this way, and that'll be the best place for you. You won't have any problems. And that's what I did. I laid out 150 foot of chain in 12 foot of water. So I had a scope, what they call a scope, of over 10 to 1, 12 to 1. And that was totally sufficient. For chain, 7 to 1 is the high end. And after that you're redundant but adding safety. So it was way safe. But even then I had another 150 foot of 5/8 inch Dacron. But this is why I got 150 foot of chain, is for this environment. I wasn't aware of it here in Hilo Bay, but all over French Polynesia there's stuff on the bottom that'll cut your rope. And that's what happened. I got a call, and we had moved, my girlfriend got another job in Waimea. Her contract ended, which is in the middle of the island. Beautiful place. And I'm there working. Got another job up there, no problem. I'm working. And I'm getting ready to go to work. I get a call from Rhonda at the club. And she's like, your boat's loose. I'm like, oh man, I'm an hour and a half away right now. She's like, I'm going to get it. I said, don't get yourself in any trouble. She took 2 other people with her, competent man. One of them was a salvage guy, and the other guy is a big-time sailor. So here we are in Hilo Bay with Rhonda R.I.P. She's the Commodore of the kids program for the Hilo Sailing Club. And Rhonda is up for Boater of the Year. She's like 10 times the Coast Guard. She's the gal that showed up. She called me on the day that I got the call, and she was already in her car going to help it. And I was in Waimea, an hour and a half away, so I couldn't get here to be able to get on the boat to help. So she went out with 2 other folks. This is what happened.
Yeah, what was the sea state like?
Oh my gosh, the sea state was it was crazy. Like, honestly, I knew it was, but when I launched Yellow Boat and I got out here, I was like, holy crap, because my first thought was, shit, maybe I shouldn't have Yellow Boat out here. You know what I mean?
I was like, oh, if it's that bad, why are you guys going?
And people saw me leaving the harbor. Mac was on Malolo, some other people from the club, and they were like, what is she doing? But I had gotten pictures of where she was on the rocks, and I was like, if we hurry, we can get her. If we wait, that's going to be the end. I was like, we got to go now. I called Mike, and I said, if you can make it, meet me at the ramp. If not, go to Reed's Bay, and you can swim out. So me and Don and his little work trader went out here, Alberto, and we got out here, and it was wet. I mean, we were like bouncing through the waves, and it was like waves were coming over, and I was like, it's just this northwest wind, which always makes it crazy because the waves go and they slam it up against the side there, and then you get the fetch where it comes back, so it's like, you know, it's like that. And the thing is anybody who's ever driven it outboard knows how hard it is to like drive in those and hover in those conditions. So then when we get out there, I was like, oh my gosh, because there was so many rocks that I had to like navigate through and hover, and it's so funny because I bet you I could never do that again. You can only do that when you have to. You know what I mean? I was just like so.
Everything, like, all the obstacles just disappear.
So, on the way out there, it was so funny because I'm thinking, oh my God, how are we going to do this? So me and Don were talking, and Don said, if we took the halyard and we hooked the line to the halyard, he said we might be able to tip her forward and pull her off the rocks. And I was like, I literally looked at him like, and we looked at each other like, well, like that's never gonna work, you know. It was like hilarious because you can tell both of us were like, I mean, like we were gonna try it because I mean we were already, and so we were like, all right, let's try it. So we get out there. Mike swims out, jumps on the boat, so he ties up the halyard. So the boat's on the rocks, okay? It's on its keel. It's doing this number. So we take the halyard. The boat lurches forward on its bow like this, and we just pulled it right off the rocks. And me and Don both looked at each other like. we're like, yeah, go. So it worked good when it was lurching forward and we were going, but then when we got out here, a wave caught it and broached it. So it just went directly on its side. Okay, so here's the boat coming out like this, and then it turned on its side, so now the deck's right here, and now I'm having to pull north into these waves, and so it's dragging on its side, and I'm not moving. We are not moving, and I just kept looking at Don, and I was like, I had no choice but to just keep going, because now we're tied to the boat. Now we Yellow Boat would have. So anyway, we start pulling, and then I was like, this isn't working. I'm going backwards. I'm starting to get scared, and so I said, we have to figure out some way to tell Mike to take the halyard down to the bow cleat so we can pop the boat back up, right? So anyway, long story short, because this is hours and hours in at this point, that we are just stuck and we're trying to, pull it, and I'm like, keep checking for gas, and I was like, okay, if I run out of gas, someone's got to change this line for me really quick because I got to drive. And so we get out this way, long story short, we get the bow line, and then we were like, woohoo! And then we got the boat up, but it was really hard. And then we're like yelling to him, giving him hand signals how to start the engine. He got the engine started. And we were like, oh my God, he got the engine started. We're like, he got the engine started. So then we're going forward, and then we get out in front of here, and we broached again. And the engine went in. And I was like, no. And so I was like, dang it. And so then it starts going. It was broached again. The wind's coming up against the deck. Yeah, so it's trying to drag like 6,000 pounds with my 9.8 on its side. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh my gosh, it was like a shovel coming through the water with
all the
weight
of all that water.
And I'm telling you, at this point, I should go look what the historic weather report was, but I'm telling you, it gusts over 30 were happening.
It was scary.
So it was really scary. So then we get out in front of here, and we lose the line. And so she starts drifting out to Nani Loa. Then we had the wind coming, and all I could think was, shit, if I could get the sails up, I could sail out of this. And because the engine was done, and we were drifting backwards. And at this point, Melissa Leah was too heavy. Yellow Boat couldn't pull her. And so I finally said to Don, and the problem I didn't want anybody else driving is because I literally know every rock in Hilo Bay, as my friend Kiko says, because I've hit everyone. So I didn't want anybody else driving because they didn't know where the rocks were, and we were drifting closer and closer. So I said, there's rocks right there, there's rocks right there. I was like, Don, can you drive this boat? And he was like, yes. I said, I gotta go. So I jumped off Yellow Boat, swam through all this surf and wind, and then when I get there, Mike has to pull me back up on the Melissa Leah. And at this point, I was like, we're going to have to let go. We're going to have to let go. But I was like, Dawn, just go, 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 go. And so he's pulling us. And so we threw out a line in front on Melissa Leah. And I stayed on board. Mike swam up. He tried to tie it off to a tree. There was a little spot I was trying to get us in that was deep enough, like right by the dock. But then we ended up on the rocks over here. But we still kept trying. Because I was like, we just, for a couple hours, we were like, ideas. And people thought we were crazy because I was like on the boat with it.
It's not even your boat.
And we were trying to we were brainstorming, and then Mike would swim out and then I would swim back, and it was just crazy. And then in the end I was like, we're done. And at this point I'm like, just like kind of numb, ready to cry, but kind of numb. And I was like, let's just go back. And then Dawn and them came around the corner. And so we are walking. So we left and we walked back to the harbor. So then Mike goes, hey, if we had a bigger boat. I said, I know. I said, I keep thinking of everybody. I said, I just feel horrible asking anybody else to come out in these conditions. It's really bad. But I said, if we have a bigger boat, I swear on the universe, pick up my phone, and it's Bob, because I have Bob and Bob, and so it was Bob Doer. And he says he's already launching his boat, and so I was like, all right, let's do this. And so we got out here. I jumped off. I got on the boat with Mike. We raised the sails. We actually started sailing. Beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, we just saved this freaking boat. I was like, yes. And the wind was starting to go down. Then I started, every time I tried tack or jibe, I was just like coming. So I was like, we're taking on water.
Yeah.
Shit, because I could feel the ballast moving when we would turn. So I had Mike go on one side, then go on the other, then stand forward. If he stood forward, I could sail perfectly wing on wing. And the wind was coming up the mountain, and I could have gone into Radio Bay. So I started calling, saying, I want permission to come into Radio Bay. I have a boat. I'm taking on water. They would not give me permission. Anyway, fought with them quite a bit. A lot of phone calls between.
Thank you.
And in the end, they said no. And I got too close over there one time on my laser, and they pulled a gun on me.
I can't even
And so I was
believe
like,
that.
and Mike was like, just go. And I was like, no. Because I was like, they already pulled a gun on me one time. I'm like, I'm not going to get shot, So then all of a sudden I went, wait a minute. I said, Yellow Boat's still in the harbor, right? And Mike's like, yeah. And I went, he's like, what are you going to do? So I called my friend Evan and his daughter Kasia, and I was like, can you guys come down, get Yellow Boat, come out, side tie me, and pull me up to the beach. So as we were going in, we side tied, we were just offloading everything. We got the engine off, Mike got the engine off. Mike worked his ass off. That was so hard to get that engine off because it was so corroded.
Yeah.
And he got it off. I couldn't believe it. And so anyway, we just started stripping the boat as much as we could. And we're like, let's save everything we can for him. Let's see what we can get. Because I was like, at this point, getting very depressed. And FYI, the Coast Guard was making me check in with them every 15 minutes, was getting super annoying because they weren't helpful.
The minute they knew that there was no more hazardous materials, they dropped. They were like, yeah, whatever.
There's no support here anyway because our calls go to Honolulu. So I'm talking to someone in Honolulu. I was just sick to my stomach because I knew how this story was going to end. And I did not want to call Jim and tell him. Yeah. And I was like, and so I said to Mike, I said, we have no choice. I said, Mike has recovered boats off of Hilo Bay that have sunk. And he's like, I'll help him. And I said, yeah, but you know how hard it is. I said, I don't want his boat to sink. I said, because he's going to be charged thousands of dollars. They're going to fine him. Then the state's going to take over. I said, I've seen this over and over again, how this goes. And I said, and they're just going to, and so the Coast Guard kept calling me. And so I called them back and I said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm getting the rest of the materials, the hazardous waste. I'm getting as much stuff as I can off this boat. And then I'm going to take it up to the beach and I'm going to run it aground. And they were literally like, what? And I was like, I'm going to run it aground. I was sick to my stomach. And in the end, I called Jim and I said, this is the worst ending, but I think you should let me beach the boat. Because I said, it's going to sink. I can't wait until high tide.
As soon as the Coast Guard said, don't let him in, I was like, yeah, you beach it. And then, because the thing is, the keel joint was destroyed. That's why it was taken on water.
That's why it was taken on water.
And for me, in a foreign land, with no resources to conjure that, to repair in a place, it's like...
But here's the thing, Jim. What makes me so mad, and I'm sorry, but I want people to know this, because you did not have to lose your boat that night.
Yeah, I know.
Your boat
I know.
would
I was
have
really
fit
pissed
on Cheers' trailer. If I could have made it in to the harbor...
Radio Bay.
I could have gotten either Radio Bay or there if I could have made it in there, or if Radio Bay would have allowed me to come in, I could have got the generator. We could have got a bilge company.
And I had the underwater epoxy. I had it on the boat. too.
And we had Shear's trailer, which we could have put your boat on Shear's trailer, pulled her out of the water and worked on her and fixed her, but I couldn't make it into the Wailoa. And that's where I needed to go. We actually, after we ran her aground, Mike and I couldn't sleep, and we thought of one last thing that we could try. So we went back out and we tried one last time. It didn't work. And so then
Melissa.
So then I said, okay, it's done. You know, it's done.
Yeah, it's
now
done.
we need to, the state is going to be all over Jim's ass. I said, we have got to help him. We've got to come together as a club and a community and help him.
And that, mateys, is exactly what happened. That was a 3-day weekend. And we messed around with it, thinking about it. We got a tow truck down there to pull it up onto the flat ground. We were going to get a dumpster right there and everything. None of that really materialized. But then Sunday night, we sat down, thought about it, and the best thing was to do is call on the club. Rhonda called everybody, and the next day, by the end of the next day, the Melissa Leah was safely, without any environmental damage, gone. Any officials that showed up after their 3-day weekend to make any kind of an assessment didn't have anything to assess. But I'll tell you, there's very few examples better to show how a community can come together to someone's aid. That was really amazing. And they're not done. We're doing a GoFundMe page that's in the description below, and you can go there and give me a couple bucks to get me back on the sea, and that is what I'm asking for. I'm gonna put my word out to everybody in the community, and subscribe and share my channels with others so that you can watch what it is to go from living the dream to nothing and back to living the dream. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show everybody in this that yeah, you can make a mistake. And mistakes is where adversities come from. I'll tell you what. These are the adversities that make life's victories so incredibly awesome. I will sail back into Hilo Bay on my next boat. And I invite you along. Let's see what it takes. See you in the next episode.